So welcome to the Art and Science of Learning, the go-to podcast for coaches, trainers, teachers, and educational businesses who want to stay ahead of today's dynamic learning landscape. In every episode, we dive deep into the strategies, tools, and mindsets that empower you to design impactful and engaging learning experiences, to meet the evolving needs of the modern adult learners, to align your teaching with businesses and industry trends, and elevate your expertise and grow your educational practice. So whether you are crafting transformative workshops, leading training programs, or running an educational business, this podcast will help you navigate the art and connection of science and the science of outcomes. So tune in to unlock our practical insights, expert interviews, and actionable advice to help you thrive as a modern educator. So welcome to episode 1. And I thought we'd start by sharing my journey as an adult learner and an adult educator. So the title for today's episode is The Story Behind the Art and Science of Adult Learning. So here I'm going to talk about my journey, the lessons that I've learned, and how it shaped my passion for adult learning. So as an adult learner, oh my goodness, haven't there been some milestones? Let me just, I left high school, and as a young adult, I went straight to university to, study nursing. It was one of the first years, it was in the first few years that nursing had actually changed from, being industry-based to being university-based, which is quite a key time in the Australian story of adult education. So going from high school to, university was important to me. And I think the thing that I've discovered along the way is that I do love learning, and I do like the challenge of learning. Not to say that it's easy. It's certainly not easy for me, but I have this curious mindset, and I am happy to delve into the unfamiliar and ask questions. So when I'd finished my degree in nursing, I decided, that I wanted my life to be an adventure. So I headed off into the Northern Territory. And being a young woman, registered nurse in the Northern Territory, the learning was exceptional. We were really well supported in the workplace. We had a 12-month program to help us transition from being full-time learners to being full-time employees. And it was really targeted towards the Northern Territory. So helping understand cultural differences and isolation and fear, and how this poverty, how this impacts our well-being, and how well-being impacts how we show up in the world. So it wasn't long, well, it was probably about 18 months before I transferred from the hospital to the renal dialysis unit. And, like I was still only 22 or 23, and I was on call. I'd be called into ICU to manage acutely ill dialysis patients and, feel that important, because those were the days when we had to carry a pager around. All my training was workplace training. I felt confident in what I was doing, and a little bit excited by it all. All right, after 3 years in the Northern Territory, I went traveling. I worked overseas, returning to Australia, and I worked, at Jupiter's Casino on the Gold Coast as the staff nurse. It was brilliant. I was studying naturopathy at the time. I was going to change the world through natural medicines. And this was my first experience of standing on a stage as the expert, delivering, meaningful education that could shape people's lives. Teaching people to look after themselves in the workplace. I was terrible. It was terrible. Um, and I think it was terrible for the new recruits who were sitting in front of me. So, but, we muddled on through. But I definitely didn't have the skills or the knowledge or the wisdom to be a teacher of adults at that time in my life. And I remember feeling so deflated and so nervous. So fast forward, in the next few years, I did complete a postgraduate in renal dialysis. I went back to renal dialysis in Western Australia at the Sir Charles Gardner Hospital. And it kind of freaked me out a little bit because everything that I'd been doing in the territory was I now had the knowledge behind the why. I had the why I was doing things. It was almost like it was instinctive before, but now I had the science to back it up. And that revelation really became quite a pivotal moment in my life. It scared me. It scared me that I was doing what I was doing without really knowing. Um, then fast forward a couple of years and married, two kids, and then I became a single parent, and nursing was not going to be sustainable as a single parent. So I moved back to the east coast of Australia and retrained as a primary school teacher. Then I retrained as a workplace educator. I taught primary school for, 7 years, and then worked in the went back to nursing and worked, in that health education. I became the workplace educator. And it was such a fantastic journey working in vocational education, really, and workplace learning. I ended up running a training organisation, and it was here that I completed my master's in adult education. This was funded by the Royal College of Nursing to get a master's in education. I thought it was brilliant, and it sort of symbolises, where the paths do cross in our industries. The big draw card for doing the masters was that I wouldn't have to do another TAE or TAA, the training and assessment module unit certificate, ever again. So that got me really excited. And then I opened a business and I was educating educators. I was working at the university part-time teaching nurses. And life was busy, but it was going well. And then I got this email from the university asking me if I wanted to do a doctorate in education. Initially, I'm like, no, I'm not one of those people that could be a doctor of education. And I dismissed it, but then it kept staying with me. And I thought, well, I'll give it a go. I enjoyed the process, I must say. It was bigger than Ben-Hur. And, for my final years, after I'd done the research, I actually ran away to India and Sri Lanka and Thailand to write my thesis. So the 4 years of research, I needed to put it together. So what I found was that, like many adult learners in my study, I researched into what adult learners need. And I had the same needs. It really aligned. I had to develop a relationship with myself. I needed to know what would work for me and what wouldn't work. And I had to honor that. And if I stayed in Australia working, I don't think I could have ever finished my thesis. I had to meet the learner need in me. The other thing that I learned was the value of community. So my supervisors became, my family, the people that were studying the doctorate with me were becoming my friends. And we had a shared language that was really, really important to me evolving as a learner and as a teacher. Change was another need that I needed to to manage because as a learner, you're growing, you're changing, and your world changes. And this became really important. And the fourth need of adult learners is joy. You need to find something inside you that excites you. It needs to be um, something that brings you joy. And there's all this research into joy, and we'll go through this in another episode, but how our cognitive function upskills when we can tune into or tap into some joy within the learning process. Even if the learning process is stressful and we've got so much going on, if we can find some joy in this, we're better able to discriminate our thinking, we're better able to get more value out of it. So, as an educator, I think I've talked a little bit about that that journey, but I just well, my choices when I left school was teaching or nursing. I wanted to do nursing when I was younger because I felt like you could have more fun, and I certainly did. And the teaching just evolved. Where as nurses, we're always teaching patients. We're involved in trying to lead people, along a health track. And I actually, because of the nursing, I discovered how much I love teaching. When I did the primary school teaching, it gave me the structure and the foundation and the ability to let learning happen, be purposeful. And this came in the form of, my Bachelor of Education. I learned to be learner focused and hold high aspirations for all my learners. And this transpired beautifully into the adult learning environment. I remember teaching language literacy and numeracy to people who, hadn't been successful as children, as child learners, and they may have suffered some trauma that came from their education in their early years, but being able to tap into that and see them for the beautiful individual that they are and help them to appreciate themselves and find some joy in their learning, the outcomes are really quite rewarding, and they're going to be stories that'll stay with me forever, helping that struggling learner succeed. And I think when we use that term succeed, we need to really define it as what it means to me. Yeah, the success is different for everybody. Now, teaching adults is definitely a challenge. Um, And, I'm hoping that this podcast will help open educators to possibility, unlocking our potential, and knowing that our experiences and the way that we change as educators really impacts the people that we're leading in learning. And I think the other thing is understanding how education as a philosophy for me, adult learning philosophy, is so important to our social, economic, and our personal development as a learner, as an individual, as a family member, as a community member, as a society member. And, adult learning has economic, social, and individual outcomes. So, the most important insights from my journey is that power of connection with learners and the need to align learning with our real life application. And I think this makes it meaningful to adults. And finally, the third one, and this is really important, the importance of our continuous growth as both a learner and an educator. We need to have that learner's mindset to tap into our leaders' leading learning mindset. All right. So why do I want you to stay? I would like to hear your feedback. I would like to hear your stories. I'm busy writing a book and publishing my research. So for me, talking and listening in this podcast are valuable ways for adults to connect. And it's a powerful way to me to get my ideas out there too. My vision for the podcast is to create this relaxed but supportive community where we support teachers and learners. This, maybe your teachers, trainers, coaches, leaders, or lecturers. I want to provide value to everybody. I really am passionate about supporting educators and education businesses in creating meaningful and transformative learning experiences. So thank you for joining me on this journey today. Thank you for tuning in. I invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. The next episode, we're going to look at leading learning with love. How do you keep adult learners engaged? And, delivering the science-backed strategies. So I invite you to connect with me. My business is called the Academy of Learning for Adults. I have a web page. You can connect with me, Lisa Ellum, on Facebook or LinkedIn. The show notes I'll attach to this when we put it out. And yeah, thank you. I'm really excited about this journey and having us connect through our stories into a deeper level where I am somebody who truly understands the world of adult learning, and I'd like to gather your understanding as well and your needs. Let me meet your needs. I am sending you so much love. Thank you so much for joining in. And I'll see you next Sunday. Thank you.